Welcome back to another episode of Conversations That Cure. As always, I'm here to my left, Corey Sturkey, aka Bonezdagoat, Pops, Greg Sturkey, I'm RYDER. And last episode we talked a little bit about Greg's early struggles in the barbershop and his perspective with his family and going through those motions. So this episode I felt that we needed to dive a little more deeper into that. So what were your early stages like in the barbershop?
Well, when I first moved down here to Florida and I got into the shop, all the cuts were different from up north. Up north, the cuts are more versatile. Down here in Florida, everybody just wanted a skin fade, and their skin fades are real high up here. Back home in New York, the fades are about the temple. So I didn't quite know how to do it. So there was this guy, his name was Sean, and Sean was the best barber I knew. This kid was phenomenal. So the thing I did is I got to know who Sean was. I sat down, held good conversation with him. I asked him, do he mind if I sit and watch him cut? And he said, no problem. And another thing that they did, they used a razor. And back home in New York, I was like, a razor? What do you mean, a razor edge? So Sean, me sitting and creating a relationship with Sean was, the door opener for me to be able to learn this new style that I, had to come across and develop. And, me and Sean would talk all the time. We got real close. I mean, we would go to the gym and we would work out together. So, that allowed me, once I established that relationship with Sean, that was the door opener for me to be able to learn from the best. Sean was hand down, the best in town. Everybody came to Sean. Everybody came to Sean. This kid had such a crisp cut. So I looked at him, I said, I gotta learn this. So getting in there and learning it, it was stressful, but I had enough confidence and belief because I knew why I needed to do this. And the reason was, my family. I knew I had to become successful. We just came off of, I had to send the kids to my mom's house, got evicted, we didn't have a place to stay. So this was my opportunity to redeem myself. So when I got in there, like I said, the first 2 weeks I made $20. But I couldn't quit. That's what I had. And I knew I had to develop what I had. And the best way for me to develop what I had was to create relationships. And when I created those relationships, that's what opened up the door for me to get better. And I created a relationship with the best. I created the relationship with the best in the shop. And that was the thing that allowed me to be able to move forward in developing my skill, at that time. It was rough. I was scared. I wanted to run. I wanted to quit. And I found out that was fine. That was fine. Those emotions and everything were fine. But I didn't follow them. I had to go home and see my son. I had to go home and see my daughter. I had to go home and see my wife at that time. So that right there, they were my why. And I made a promise to myself that I'm going to get this. I'm going to do it. I'm hands down. There was no quitting in me because, I didn't know how to quit.
I remember when you first started going to the shop, because obviously you cut my hair my whole life and you would cut like your friends and stuff. So when you went to the shop, I thought it was cool, but I didn't understand the dynamic of starting from nothing in a city where you didn't grow up at, in a barbershop that's heavily community based. Mm-hmm. All the barbers that worked there grew up in Palm Beach.
Yeah.
All of them. Everybody grew up in Palm Beach, and every client that came in there knew the barbers their entire life, it seemed like. And you're coming in there It's an all ball from New York. I don't even think he was even fading with masters at that time. You were just using the Osa detachables.
Yeah, that's
so his
what it
phase
was.
were system was completely different.
Yeah.
And as a child, I remember the beginning stages, and I want to ask you about that, but I remember the beginning stages of you cutting hair and coming home. I never forget, you came home one day and y'all thought that me and Sunita were asleep. Nene always heard when they was arguing because her room, when we lived in Indian Ponds, was right next to my mom and dad's. So she come knock on, she's like, Corey, come on, hurry up. Mom and daddy are arguing and I'm scared. So she comes, that was my sister's thing. She comes, grabs me, and we go up to the door and they're in the back of the room so that we couldn't hear. So I took like a little cup and I put it on the door. And I remember hearing my mom say, it's like, Greg, like, what are we gonna do? Like we just moved into this new house. We had this old school Cadillac, this burgundy old Cadillac that was barely making it to work. And she was like, Greg, you've been there for 2 weeks. Like, I think you need to try something different. You only made $20. And I remember vividly, I'm 35, I remember vividly what my father said. He said, Shamil, I know that God did not lead me and my family down here for me to fall on my face. I'm gonna have a 5-bedroom house, 2-car garage paid off. I said, he said, I gotta stick with this thing because I know it's gonna work. I just need time. And that was kind of an early seed for me, seeing that like, even when the closest people around you may not necessarily see the vision, you gotta be okay with standing in that thing by yourself. And standing in the dark. And I feel that was a testament to just your commitment and your conviction to the family. You know, for you, it was like barbering may not necessarily been something he was passionate about, but you understood this was a tool that was going to lead me to be able to provide the lifestyle that I wanted from my family.
Because I know even we had that conversation about, like, I know fitness is your passion. So how did you go about, like, it being in an industry that you weren't passionate about, but becoming successful in it? Because I know that's for a lot of people nowadays, that's hard for people because everybody thinks you have to follow your passions in order to make money off it. So how did you go about?
Because the thing was, my first passion, I was raised fatherless. My real father, didn't want to have nothing to do with me. 16, I was homeless. And that's when I met him. He didn't want to have nothing to do with me. So I remember that pain. And that pain was the teacher. And I said to myself, if I ever get a girl pregnant, I'm not leaving my child. I'm not going to pass that pain. So that pain was enough for me to move forward and become what I needed to become in order to take care of my family. So my passion was my family, being a provider, making sure that my son, my daughter know what love is. I didn't want them to experience rejection. I didn't want them to feel that, that they wasn't enough. So that was my driving force. Yes, when I got into the barbershop, I was petrified. I didn't know nobody, but I knew how to develop relationships. I knew how to talk with people. So when I was able to talk with Sean, the thing that had happened was Sean sent me his clients when he couldn't do them. And because his clients saw me sit there and watch Sean all the time, they trust me. So they would come to me, and then eventually other barbers in the barbershop saw that I was cutting just as good as Sean. Their clients began to come to me. Why? It wasn't the fact that, I had the greatest skills. No, I knew how to develop relationships. When I developed a relationship, I developed a relationship with the number one person in the shop. And I gained his respect. I gained his trust. His people that he was cutting would come to me. Yo, Sean busy. Can you take care of me? Yo, Sean busy. Boom. Whatever they was dropping Sean, they would drop me. Whatever Sean was making, I was making. But it was, the driving force was being that example and showing my children love. That was my passion. That right there, hands down, it was hard. I was petrified. I wanted to run, but.
So I remember we had a discussion a few years ago, and we got into a big argument because at that time I didn't understand it. And I said, Dad, like, what do you mean you wasn't passionate about being a barber? Like, you taught me to fall in love with the art of being a barber, to stay consistent, to work hard, to build relationships. And it took me years to figure out. I was like, you didn't teach me anything about barbering. You taught me relational skills. You taught me how to communicate with people. You taught me how to be accountable. You taught me how to be consistent. You taught me how to care. Because you understood that the haircut wasn't what brings people back. Because I remember asking you, I was like, Dad, are you the best barber in the shop? I was like, no, Sean is. And I remember saying, then why don't people go to Sean? Why are they going to you? If Sean is the best barber in the shop, I'm sitting in Sean's chair. But the thing that Sean didn't have was Sean wasn't open the shop at 5 a.m. Sean would be at the shop at noon. Or my dad would open up the shop at 5 a.m. and come home at 9 or 10 o'clock at night. So I want to ask you, how was the trend? How did it feel being in the shop where you wasn't getting any clients at first? It was struggling. Everybody around you seemed to think that you made a mistake by taking this profession, but then you turned around and maximized that opportunity. Because I remember when it changed, because we was in the mall every weekend. He was buying me shoes, and I know he was doing that because it was for him as a man and as a father. That meant so much to him because he was never
able to provide.
Exactly.
He was able to give you the things that you weren't able to get.
Exactly. So how was it for you in that season in comparison to how it was for you when you first started? How did you feel walking into the house, looking Mom in the face and looking me and Sunita in the face, knowing that I got $500-$600 on me right now, and these haircuts are only costing $10? So if you do the math, you know he's either getting tipped a lot or he's cutting a lot, or both. So how was that for you?
First, it was a self-belief thing. It was a confidence boost. It allowed me to realize if I put my focus on one thing, I can accomplish it, regardless of what I felt I didn't have. So I felt, I didn't have the education. I felt I didn't have it, but I had connection. And I didn't realize that until later on in life. I knew how to connect and deal with people. So once I was able to maximize, because, a lot of people think it was the fact that I knew how to cut. It really, like you said, didn't have nothing to do with cutting. Because I had to come into a place, a stranger, and there were barbers in there that talked about me while I was cutting. What is he doing? Now, all of this is ringing in my head while I'm cutting. I knew not to get nasty with nobody. I knew that I had to develop great relationships with everybody in the barbershop. And when I did that, it was a confidence builder to believe that I was able to provide with what I had to my family.
I think that was real big for you because I think that was probably one of the, I don't want to say the first time, but it was one of the first times being your child, seeing you start with absolutely nothing, and then grow it from that. Like, it taught me subconsciously that giving up doesn't exist in this household, and we don't move like that. So like, if people who's watching, they don't know, all three of us is barbers. So Ryder, how was it for you when you first started, when you moved down here, trying to get your life together, and then you step into the barber industry? How was it for you in your early days?
It was scary, honestly, because I relate with your story. I had nothing. I didn't know anybody. I got linked with a mutual friend who then introduced me to my first mentor and was like, hey, just come work at the shop. In my head, I thought I had been cutting for about a year now, so I thought I was nice, I was terrible. I was, you know how it is. We all know you mess cats up. So getting into that shop, not knowing a soul, but I was grateful that I was so open-minded and willing. Because those two things allowed me to be teachable. To accept criticism and to allow myself to build from that moment. I was able to learn how to gain clientele and how to actually cut hair. And to be an actual barber, not just somebody who does cut hair. So.
For me, it sucked. It sucked. Like, I was so depressed when I first started cutting hair because I didn't fully grasp the concept of starting from zero as a barber and understanding that you could be at work for 9 hours and make no money today. Like, that is a possibility. You could work the whole week and not make no money. And that's a hard pill to swallow, getting into something new. But at the same time, I couldn't even imagine being in that same position, married with 2 kids.
No, exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
I think we were both in the same spot.
Bro,
Like,
my only
we
deal-
got into it, we didn't have kids. There was
My car
it was
was
just all right.
paid, my car was paid off, and I had a Metro bill, and I had to pay insurance. And I was paying him rent at the house, which was $50 a week. You know what I'm saying? Nothing. It was light, and he was just doing that to teach me responsibility. But when I first started, I worked at this shop, and the owner just really took advantage of the barbers in the shop. And I remember I had just one good week where I made like $140 on a Saturday, and that can testament to that. I came home excited. You know, I kept my shirt on because it had a bunch of hair on it because I wanted him to see. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is what you did. Like, I'm doing what you did. Like, you taught me how to do this, and I'm doing this now. He's like, how was I? Man, I killed it today, dog. I killed it. I said, I made like $140. I was cutting the whole day. The owner saw that and put me on rent the next week. When he put me on rent for $140. The amount of money that I made the entire week prior to that, that's what he put me on rent for the following week. And I worked 7 days. I would go there after church, 7 days, and I made $180 for the week. So after he paid rent, after I had to pay him rent, I walked home with 2 $20 bills. And the same energy that I walked in that week before was not there no more. I walked in the house, and my dad was, he's sitting in the housework, man. I told him what happened, and that's when he dropped that gem on me. He's like, man, you just got to fall in love with the people, and you got to fall in love with the art. If you do that, I promise you everything's going to work out. But in the position that I wasn't trying to hear that. Because that was a long-term fix for something that I felt I needed an immediate remedy for it, and I wasn't getting that from him. I got it from my mother. I walked upstairs, and I was trying to go to my room because the way I dealt with my depression is I wouldn't eat. I would I would turn off all the lights in my room. I had black curtains, and I would sleep. Like, my parents always know when something's wrong with me because my room is a mess, and I just sleep. Because that was how I would avoid those situations. Because at that time, I didn't understand how to show up for Corey yet. I thought that if I just sleep this away, tomorrow it won't be as bad. So I was trying to make my way to the room. My mom stops me because she was trying to make me take her plate from downstairs that she finished eating to the kitchen, and I was trying to avoid it because, for one, I didn't want to talk to nobody, and I didn't want to walk back downstairs from taking her plate. So she calls me in the room, and she says to me, she's like, how was work? And I told her, and I just broke down crying. And she's shocked. She's like, man, what's wrong? I said, I feel like a loser. I worked so hard this week. And I was like, I didn't go to college. I went to college. It wasn't for me. I don't like working for somebody. And I finally get into something. I have a good week where I feel like there's promise behind it. And I feel like it got stripped away from me right there. I said, I feel like I let you and dad down because y'all made so many sacrifices for me and Sanita growing up that now I'm a barber, and that's not even respected as a real profession. Like, people was asking me, when am I going to go to school? Like, I'm not going to school. This is my job. This is not a hobby. And my mom said to me, she was like, Corey, she said, come here, come sit down. I walked in the bed, and I put my head on her lap. And she said, I didn't raise no loser. I raised a great man. And she was like, you're going to be successful. I know it's hard right now, but you got to keep fighting, man. She said, I can see it now. She's like, people going to be flying you around the world to cut their hair. But this is before Instagram was out. People weren't posting haircuts on Facebook like that. This is 2009.
That's right.
And she saw what I'm doing now, 16 years later, exactly what I'm doing now. She saw that. So I had to hold on to what she told me because I didn't have a foundation of self-belief. So I had to hold on to that confirmation and that belief that my mother had in me to be successful. And at the same time, I feel like my dad had a little bit of that as well. It's like, he didn't know, he probably feels the way, but there's no way that he thinks that me and my sister think that he's failing. We think that he's a hero. So in his eyes, it's like, my kids think I'm gonna be successful, so I gotta be successful. I thought my mom said I'm gonna be successful. If this woman says I'm gonna be successful, I have to keep pushing. And she know that night it changed and it saved my life because it gave me purpose. It gave me purpose behind my passion and behind my drive, which allowed me to catapult into my career where I'm at right now. So all of us are barbers. We're all fathers and whatnot, but it was hard.
Yeah.
It was hard, like starting something new from nothing. It was so hard, but I thank God that I had people around me that spoke into me, and I had examples to show me like, this is possible.
Yes.
This is possible. So that's it for this episode. I want to say thank you to everybody for tuning in with us again. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, turn your post notifications on so you know when we're dropping. We'll be dropping weekly with this content. And again, in the comment sections, if y'all have anything that y'all want to talk about or want to ask us, drop it in the comment section. We'll scroll through there and we'll try to implement it as much as we possibly can so that we're as engaging as we possibly can, because we here to bring change. We're here to pour into you, but we can't pour into you if there's not a equal line of communication between y'all and us. So on behalf of myself, my brother Ryder, my father Greg, and Conversations That Cure, we appreciate y'all. See y'all soon. Take care.